Good morning, students. Am I audible?
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good
Good
morning.
morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
So, last class we are discussing about principle of superposition, and I given one assignment over there for that topic. And 87 students have turned in. 3 students are missing. I do not know. Okay. Anyway, so so today we are going to discuss interference, and let me share my screen. Okay. Is my screen visible to all of you?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
People are coming one by one. Okay. So interference, when two or more waves of same frequency, wave number, and all travel in approximately similar direction. I mean, slight here and there is fine, but they must travel in similar direction, and they must have similar frequency and wave number. Then the resultant intensity of light do not get distributed evenly. That will be distributed in a manner called interference fringes. Okay, they will be distributed unevenly. Somewhere the area will be bright, somewhere the area will be dark, and you will get a pattern, and that pattern is called interference pattern or fringe pattern. Okay, so this non-uniform distribution of light intensity due to the superposition of two or more waves traveling in similar direction, two or more coherent waves, you may say, traveling in similar direction, is called the interference. Okay. Note that the temporal coherence of the two waves must be there. That means the temporal coherence is mandatory. Without temporal coherence, if frequencies are different, then what will happen? Though you will be getting a fringe pattern, the fringe pattern will be switching uh, with respect to time so fast that you won't be able to visualize any interference pattern. Okay, if the frequency of light is some 10 to the power 15 hertz, then the fringe pattern will be switching, like sometime it will be dark, sometime it will be bright, sometime dark, and that switching will be so fast that you won't be able to visualize, because the capacity of our eye to visualize an event, we have a capacity of distributing maximum 25 events per second. If the number of events are going beyond 25, your eye, human being's eye, won't be able to resolve them. Okay, so if it is 10 to the power 15 times, if the frequency is 10 to the power 15 hertz, then obviously you won't be able to recognize those switchings. So that's how we require the temporal coherence to be there. That means phi 2 minus phi 1 should be constant with respect to time. That means that should form a standing wave, first of all. Second, the frequency difference, I mean the frequencies of the individual waves must be same. That means delta omega must be equal to 0. If delta omega is there, there is a frequency difference, and obviously in the wave equation it is omega t. So when delta omega will be there, the fringe pattern will be time dependent. So temporal coherence is the most important. Spatial coherence is also required, of course, but that is not that mandatory. In fact in fact if your coherence is getting lost slowly for some time, for some area of space, then also you may see the interference pattern. Okay, so spatial coherence is not that mandatory. That is also required, but not that mandatory. Without change in phase with respect to space, you won't be able to see any fringe pattern. So, but temporal coherence is mandatory. This phi 2 minus phi 1 should be constant over time. That means your resultant wave must form a standing wave pattern. Okay. Now, how to obtain two coherent light sources effectively? Because it's very difficult to obtain two coherent light sources independently. Suppose you are taking two different torches or two different laser lights. However precaution you take, you cannot claim that the two independent sources are coherent to each other. So in order to get to coherent sources, to coherent sources, there are two ways. Okay, there are two ways in which we can obtain two coherent sources. And from a single source, generally we obtain two coherent sources from a single source. There are two ways to do that. One, by splitting those two sources, that single source, or and another by reflection or refraction. Okay, these are two methods to obtain two coherent sources. I'll discuss little about them. Here is the picture. Okay, here is a picture which is describing or which is explaining the two methods of of obtaining two coherent sources. The splitting method is called division of amplitude, and the reflection or refraction method is called sorry. The splitting method is called division of wavefront, and the reflection and refraction method is called division of amplitude. These are two methods of obtaining to coherent sources. Okay, the left side figure is showing a method which is called as the division of wavefront. Here, what we are doing, we are simply splitting one single source or one wavefront coming out of a single source into two wavefronts by just splitting the wavefront by using two slits. Okay, as you can see, and this is a most common example of Young's double slit experiment, where what we do, we take a single source, we place two slits very nearly placed to each other in front of that source, and we will obtain two coherent sources. These two sources will be emanating two independent wavefronts. These wavefronts will be in phase with each other. Okay, so this method is called is known as the method of obtaining two coherent light sources from a single source by division of wavefronts. Some examples where some experimental demonstration where we use this method of obtaining coherent sources are these: Young's double slit experiment, Fresnel bioprism, Lord's mirror. Okay, these are few examples of obtaining a single source, of obtaining two coherent sources from a single source. The other method is by division of amplitude. There, what we do, we use the method of reflection and refraction from a thin film, or that film may be of any liquid, water, or any glass. We use that film to obtain two coherent sources by the method of reflection or refraction or both. Okay. So here it is the example. As you can see, there is a single source here. Am I audible? Are you guys following me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay, great, thank you. So here you can see there is a single source, and light coming from that single source is getting reflected from the upper interface. Now here is a medium. Suppose this is a glass plate or thin glass plate or thin film of any liquid of any material which is quite transparent, and some light is getting reflected and some light is getting refracted. Okay, now the light which is getting reflected, that will again get reflected from the lower interface separating the air medium. Suppose this is air medium and this is glass medium. The light which is getting refracted from the first interface is getting reflected back into the same medium, same glass medium, by the second interface separating glass and air. And after reaching out at the first interface, again some part of that light will be reflected back and some part will be refracted. Okay, now look at these two rays, this ray and this ray. Okay, this component of light and this component, first and second component of light. The first and second component of light will have different amplitudes. Okay, depending upon the reflection coefficient and transmission coefficient, the first and second will have different amplitude, but they will have same phase, because the path difference they are traveling, they'll have similar phase. I should not say same phase, they will have similar phase. Okay, so this is how we can obtain two coherent sources out of single source by using the method of reflection and refraction. Okay, so the phase of this light, this beam of light, and the phase of this beam of light, they will be almost similar. They, I should not say they are constant. If they are constant, you should not get a different change. but they are similar, very near to each other. Okay. Similarly, this ray, all these rays can be treated as coherent sources because they all have similar phase difference between them. Okay. However, the amplitude is going to decay. Okay. Suppose, for example, the reflection coefficient of this surface. Do you know reflection coefficient? Do you know what is reflection coefficient?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Reflection coefficient is nothing but the amount of light or the percentage of light that is getting reflected from the total. Okay. Suppose if you are incidenting a total intensity of 10 unit, I'm not taking unit anywhere. So suppose you incidented light of 10 unit, and from there you got reflected 5 unit, then your reflection coefficient will be zero point 0.5. The maximum value of reflection coefficient can be 1 and minimum value can be 0. If your reflection coefficient of the interface of this interface is zero point 0.5, then out of 10 unit of incident light, 5 unit will get reflected. Okay. If the intensity of incident light is 10 unit, the intensity of the reflected light will be 5 unit. Okay. So that's how I am telling that we are dividing the amplitude. We are dividing the amplitude, and obviously the next one will be again having less. Out of that, that will be around 1.25 unit, like that. Okay. So this is how we are dividing the amplitude of the incident beam, and we are getting two coherent sources. This method is called division of amplitude. And who is going to decide the reflection coefficient? The refractive indices of the intervening medium. The suppose the refractive index of this glass is n1 and the refractive index of this air is n2. Then these two values are going to decide what could be the reflection coefficient. Okay. And this method is called is known as the method of obtaining two coherent sources out of a single source by the division of amplitude. And there are some experimental demonstration where we use this method to obtain two coherent sources, and these are some of them. One is Newton's ring, one is Michelson's interferometer. These are few experimental demonstrations. In your syllabus, we'll be discussing one method from this method, one experimental demonstration from this method, one experimental demonstration from this method. We'll be discussing Newton's thing and Fresnel biplane in detail. Okay. Now let's come to the conditions of constructive and destructive interference. Means the places where we are going to get constructive interference or bright fringe, and the places where we are going to get destructive interference or the dark fringe. Okay. There are certain conditions and mathematical formula rules uh, which are going to decide whether we will be getting a constructive or destructive interference at a particular place. Okay. I'm not telling at a particular time because we have assumed now that the phase difference, the coherency is temporal coherency is there, so that we are forming a standing wave, and the phase difference between the two waves or the individual waves are not changing with respect to time. They are changing, but with respect to space only. Okay. Now consider two waves, psi 1 and psi 2, as we were discussing in the last class. And when they will superpose with each other, the expression for resultant wave will be psi equal to a sine kx minus omega t plus phi, if the wave number and frequency of the two waves are same. If they are different, then this will not be the expression. You will get omega 1 plus omega 2 into t, k1 plus k2 into x, like that. Okay. Where a is the resultant amplitude, or a is the amplitude of the resultant wave, whose expression can be written as a square equal to a1 square plus a2 square 2 plus 2a1 a2 cos into phi 2 minus phi 1. And phi 2 minus phi 1 is the phase difference between the two waves at that particular space and time. Okay. Now, as I mentioned in the last class, this 2a1 a2 cos phi 2 minus phi 1 is called as the interference term, because it is going to decide, this term is only going to decide whether the interference will be constructive or destructive, depending upon the phase difference phi 2 minus phi 1. That is the reason why we call this as an interference term. Okay. Phase term or interference term. Now if I want to write this equation, this resultant amplitude in terms of intensity, if I want to write the resultant intensity in terms of individual intensity, then I can write a square equal to I, the intensity of the resultant wave, and a1 square equal to I1, intensity of the first component wave, a2 square equal to I2, intensity of the second component wave, and hence I can be written as I1 plus I2 plus 2 I1 A2 of the root over cos phi 2 minus phi 1. Okay. Now, if at a certain place, at a certain time, and from now onward, I'll not be talking about time. We will assume that the waves are coherent with respect to time. They have brilliant temporal coherence. Okay. Now, if at a certain space, at a certain position, the phase difference between these two waves is an even integral multiple of pi, or if an integral multiple of 2 pi, you can say, or an even integral multiple of pi, then phi 2 minus phi 1 will be equal to 0 plus minus 2 pi plus minus 4 pi, etc. Okay, and in that case, cos of the phi 2 minus phi 1 will be equal to 1, because cos 0, cos 2 pi, cos 4 pi equals to 1, and hence the resultant intensity will be given by I1 root plus I2 root of the whole square. This is the resultant intensity of the resultant wave. And obviously, this is the maximum value possible out of this equation. What is the maximum value possible out of this equation? Is this one, I1 root plus I2 root of the whole square. This is the maximum value. Okay, you cannot have value more than this. This means that at such position, the intensity is maximum, and such interference are called constructive interference. These when the position or the area of the space where this condition is going to get fulfilled. This condition means phi 2 minus phi 1 equal to 0 plus minus 2 pi plus minus 4 pi, etc. In those areas, you will be getting the maximum. You will be getting the intensity of resultant wave to be maximum, and such kind of interference is called constructive interference. And this condition of phase difference is called the condition for constructive interference. This condition is called condition for constructive interference. Okay. Similar to that, if in certain space or certain position of space, this condition is getting fulfilled. What is this condition? Phi 2 minus phi 1 is an odd integral multiple of pi. That means plus minus pi, plus minus 3 pi, plus minus 5 pi, etc. Then obviously cos phi 2 minus phi 1 will be equal to minus 1. Cos phi 2 minus phi 1 will be equal to minus 1. And hence the intensity, resultant intensity will be equal to I1 root minus I2 root of the whole square. And this is the minimum intensity that is possible. This is the minimum intensity. This is possible by superposition of two waves having intensities I1 and I2. Okay, and when this condition is fulfilled, the region of space where this condition is fulfilled will be getting a dark or minimum intensity, and those areas are called the areas of destructive interference. And when this condition is getting fulfilled, and when or the region of space for which this condition is getting fulfilled, that region is called destructive interference, and these conditions are called conditions of destructive interference. Okay, if the intensities of component waves are equal, if both the components wave are having same intensities, then the maximum intensity that you will be getting is I max equal to 4 pi, and minimum intensity that you will be getting is equal to I minimum equal to 0. And if if I want to write these conditions in a more general form, then I can write in this way. Phase difference, if the phase difference between the two waves is an even integral multiple of pi, where n equals to 0, plus minus 1, plus minus 2, plus minus 3, then we will get constructive interference. And if it is an odd integral multiple of pi, 2n plus 1 pi, then we will get uh, destructive interference. Okay, these are the conditions written in more general form, because in order to make this value of n constant for all conditions, what we have done here, after generalizing, we have made this value of n equal to same for all conditions. Okay, so that's the reason of generalizing, so that it will be easier to remember, because for destructive interference n equal to 0 is not possible. For constructive interference n equal to 0 is possible. Okay, so in order to make a generalized condition, so that it will be easier to remember, when the conditions of constructive, when the conditions, sorry, when the phase difference is an integral, even integral multiple of pi, 2 and pi. Okay, even integral multiple of pi, when you are multiplying 2 and 2 to a natural number, you are getting even number. Okay, so then you are getting constructive interference. And if it is an odd integral multiple of pi, 2n plus 1 pi, then you are getting a destructive interference. Okay, in terms of path difference also, you can write these equations, because we have the relation between phase difference and path difference h. phase difference equals to 2 pi by lambda into path difference. So these equations, these conditions can be written in the form of path difference between the two waves. Is if the path difference between the two waves is an uh, integral multiple of lambda. If it is an integral multiple of lambda, then you will get constructive interference. And if the path difference is an integral multiple of lambda by 2, sorry, yeah, integral multiple of, there is a mistake here. If the path difference is an even integral odd integral multiple of lambda by 2, then you will get a destructive interference. Here it is a mistake. Okay, it cannot be 2 lambda by 2. So if the path difference is 2n plus 1 lambda by 2, then you are getting destructive interference. If it is n lambda, then you are getting constructive interference. These are the conditions of constructive and destructive interference in terms of path difference. Okay, here it is a mistake. It cannot be 2 lambda by 2. Got it? So you cannot get this. It must be a odd integral multiple of lambda by 2. Got it? So these are the conditions of constructive and destructive interference in terms of phase difference and path difference. You guys need to remember this because we will be using frequently these conditions in the further study. Okay. Here it is an example of an interference pattern by Young's double slit experiment. And we are not going to discuss this experiment in detail because you must have studied this during your 12th or preparation. So what we do here, we use two slits separated by a very small distance between them, are used to generate two coherent sources. And after some distance, at a certain distance, if you are placing a screen, then you will be getting this fringe pattern, this kind of fringe pattern. Somewhere it will be bright, somewhere it will be dark, somewhere bright, somewhere dark, like that. And this is called a interference fringe pattern. Okay, this pattern is called an interference fringe pattern from Young's double slit experiment. Okay. Now, what are the conditions for sustained interference pattern? In order to get sustained interference pattern, the interfering wave must be coherent. Okay, if they are not coherent, the interference pattern whatever you will be getting will not be sustained over time. They will be changing their uh, brightness and darkness frequently with a very high frequency of 10 to the power 15 hertz around, and you won't be able to see any fringe pattern. So in order to get sustained interference, the waves must be coherent. They must be at least temporally coherent. Okay, and frequency of the two waves must be same. This is same condition, and wave must be in the same state of polarization. What is state of polarization? Do you guys know? Hello,
Yes, sir.
Yes,
am i
sir.
am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, waves must be in the same state of polarization in order to get sustained interference. What do you mean by state of polarization?
So that same medium it should be.
No, that medium, in that case medium is called homogeneous or isotropic.
So same plane.
Uh-huh. What is the state of polarization of a wave?
And sir, same,
Sir, they must be on same plane.
Yes, their
same. Yes,
vibration
sir.
must
They
be
must be the same
in the
plane.
same plane. Okay, let me. Okay, whatever I am drawing, is it visible to all of you? I am drawing with a small pencil.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let me give you a pictorial definition of state of polarization. Suppose this is a origin. Origin of a coordinate system. This is suppose z axis. Okay. Now suppose we have a wave which is propagating in z axis. Okay. Now the x-axis is on the plane of the system or plane of the paper, and y-axis is perpendicular to the plane of the paper pointing outward. Okay, y-axis is perpendicular to the plane of paper pointing outward. Now for a transverse wave, you know that the vibration of the intervening medium, vibration of the particles of the intervening medium is perpendicular to the direction of propagation of the wave. Suppose wave is propagating in this direction in the z-axis. Now if it is a transverse wave, then the particle vibration must be perpendicular to the direction of propagation. Now there can be two directions of perpendicular propagation, any direction of course, but we can always divide them, or we can always um, break them into its component form. So that's why I'm discussing only two directions, but they can have any arbitrary direction. Okay. So one direction is suppose x-axis, particle is vibrating in this way, okay. And in another case, the particle is vibrating in a plane perpendicular to the plane of paper, okay. In one case, the waves or the particles of the medium are vibrating in a plane which is on the plane of paper, and the other way is the vibration in which the particles are vibrating in a plane perpendicular to the plane of paper. And both we can be treated as a transverse wave because they are transferring the disturbance in the z direction. So they both can be treated as a transverse wave. Now this wave can be called as y polarized wave, and this wave second wave can be called as a x polarized wave because the vibrational plane is on x-axis. Here the vibrational plane is on y-axis. Now any vibrational plane can happen. There can be any vibrational plane, 45 degree to x-axis, 30 degree to x-axis. Anything can happen, but we can always divide them into two perpendicular components. That's why I'm discussing these two. Okay. Now if your two waves for which you are going to see the interference or superposition, if they have different plane of polarization, one is perpendicular, one is parallel plane of polarization, one is x plane, one is y plane, then they are not going to superpose. Okay, in order to have superposition, they must be in the same plane of vibration. Both must be in either in x plane of vibration or y plane of vibration. Okay, if they are vibrating in a different plane of vibration, they are not going to get superposed. Okay, even if you may say, sir, are you restricting their plane of vibration? No, we are not restricting. If the plane of vibration is unpolarized, if it is in arbitrary direction at a certain angle to x-axis, then what we can do, for both the waves we can find out their x component and we can find out their y plane component, and the x plane component will superpose with the x plane component of the second wave, and y plane component of the first wave will superpose with the y plane component of the second wave. So their state of polarization, they will superpose with the similar state of polarization. They are not going to superpose with different state of polarization. Okay, that's the case. That's why these waves must be of same state of polarization. If state of polarization are different, then what will happen? Some polarization rotation is different. Then what will happen? The contrast between the bright fringe and dark fringe is not going to be very good. I mean, bright will not be too bright, or bright will not be completely bright, and dark will not be completely dark, and you won't get a good fringe pattern. So in order to have a sustained and good fringe pattern, the state of polarization must be set. Okay, for better contrast of fringes, what are the requirement? The amplitude of both the waves must be same. If the amplitudes are not same, again you are not going to get completely bright for bright fringes and completely dark for dark fringes. There will be I mean contrast is will not be good. You won't be able to recognize which one is bright, which one is dark if the amplitudes are not same. If the one amplitude is amplitude of one wave is suppose 1,000, and amplitude of one another wave is suppose 1 unit, then what will be the minimum? The maximum one will be equal to 1,001 unit, and minimum one will be equal to 999 unit. So it's very difficult to recognize, or difficult to distinguish between 999 unit and 1,001 unit. Okay, so in order to have a better contrast between fringes, you must have two amplitudes uh, same to each other or similar to each other. Okay, light must be monochromatic. What will happen if the light is non-monochromatic? Monochromatic light is a kind of light in which the component or the light will be having a single wavelength of radiation. Okay, if the wavelength of radiation is single, then such kind of sources or lights are called monochromatic light. Now, if it is not monochromatic, suppose it is having five wavelengths in its radiation, then each of them will satisfy the conditions of coherent, conditions of constructive and destructive superposition separately. Okay. Now, at a particular place, suppose for lambda one it is satisfying constructive, for lambda two it is satisfying destructive, for lambda two three it is satisfying again constructive condition. Then what will happen? The constructive superposition or the bright fringe for one wavelength will overlap with the dark fringe of the other, and the dark fringe of one wavelength will overlap with the bright fringe of the other. Okay, so you won't be able to see a nice or good good fringes. So in order to get good fringes, the light source should be monochromatic. Okay, if the light source is, again, it must be narrow. If the light source is not narrow, it is an extended source, again you won't be able to visualize nice fringes. So these are the various conditions for having better contrast of fringes. For clear observation of fringes, the distance between the source and screen must be large, distance between sources must be small, and background must be dark. If the background is not dark, again you cannot observe clear fringes. Okay, these are the certain conditions which we need to fulfill in order to have a better fringe pattern or better experimental demonstration. Okay, understood? Any doubt? Are
No,
you
sir.
following? Are you guys following me or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Whenever you find difficult, you just stop me there itself. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Now these are the two intensity distribution curve for the case where the intensities of the individual waves are same and intensities of individual waves are not same. So as you can see, when the intensity of individual waves are same, the minimum intensity is zero. Okay, this is intensity plot. This is zero value, and this is maximum value, and maximum intensity will be equal to 4i. Okay. However, if the intensity of the individual waves are not same, then the minimum intensity will not be equal to zero. The minimum intensity will be equal to I1 root minus I2 root of the whole square, whereas the maximum intensity will be equal to I1 root plus I2 root of the whole square. So the maximum intensity formula is not going to change, but the minimum intensity formula is going to change. So minimum intensity, I mean, formula is not going to change, values are going to change. That's what I want to mean. Okay. So here the minimum intensity will not be zero. So this is the intensity distribution plots for a case where the intensities are same, intensities of individual waves are same, and this is the case where the intensities of the individual waves are different. Okay, this is intensity distribution curve. Now, now the question arises as I asked um, in the assignment. You must have done this, that whether the energy conservation principle is getting aware by this constructive interference or not. Okay, so this kind of interference or not constructive. Whether the interference, sorry, conservation of energy principle is being obeyed or is being satisfied this interference or not, this phenomenon of interference. Okay, that you can prove using this integration, because in order to find average intensity, you have to integrate the intensity distribution curve over a certain distance divided by that distance. Okay, now here we are choosing the distance to be 2 pi radian, because after 2 pi radian the wave pattern is getting repeated, so there is no meaning of integrating beyond that. Okay, so if you integrate the intensity distribution curve over 0 to 2 pi, over 0 to 2 pi radian in this region. Okay, and divide the area in this region. If you integrate the phi angle in this region, you will get the area under this region. Okay, I mean, not area, it is length. Okay, in axis, phi axis, it is the length between 0 and 2 pi radian. So if you do that, I d phi 0 to 2 pi divided by d phi 0 to 2 pi, then you should get the average intensity. Okay, average means that will come nearby to this. Okay, this is called average intensity, and that average intensity you will find it is I1 plus I2. So the average intensity before superposition was I1 plus I2, because I1 was the intensity of first wave, I2 is the intensity of second wave, so the average intensity is I1 plus I2. But when they get superposed, when interference happens between those two waves, the intensity distribution is not uniform now. Initially, before superposition, they were uniform, so we just added them up to get the average intensity. Okay, but after superposition, the intensity distribution is not uniform. That will have a certain pattern from maximum to minimum. So in this case, the average intensity we found out by this integration principle, this method, and we found that the average intensity has come out to be I1 plus I2, which is nothing but same as the average intensity of the two waves before superposition or before interference. So the law of conservation of energy principle is getting valid here. That is not getting violated from in this phenomenon. And this is the question I given in the lesson in that assignment. Many of you must have done this. Okay. Now let's discuss on relation, Stokes relation, which is quite required in order to study one of the application called Newton's ring experiment. Okay. What is Stokes law? Do guys know? Do you guys know what is Stokes law? Stokes relation.
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay. 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 So this is quite important because you require this Stokes relation to study the Newton's ring experiment. Okay. Now, what this Stokes law says, actually, this law, this is not a law. Actually, he uh, uh, derived this concept from the theory of electromagnetic theory, boundary conditions, and just I'm telling in terms of a law or in terms of a relation. Okay, but this can be derived, this can be proved. What it says, when light propagates from a rarer to a denser medium, when light propagates from a rarer to a denser medium, what do you mean by rarer and denser? Because the refractive index can somehow be related to density. They are not proportional to density, but refractive index can be related to density. Refractive index of a medium can be related to density. The mediums which are more denser, they have more refractive index. The medium which are less denser, they have less refractive index. But there is no any specific relation between the density and refractive index. Okay, but there is a qualitative relation. You can say more means more, less means less. You can say that. Okay, there are other factors on which refractive index also dependent. Intermolecular force and many things are there. Dielectric constant, many things are there. Okay, but the mediums which are denser, they are generally, they do have more refractive index. The medium which are not less dense or having less density, they generally do have less refractive index. So rarer medium means a medium having less refractive index, and denser medium means a medium having a higher refractive index. So when a light travels from a rarer medium to a denser medium, at the interface separating these two medium, some light will be reflected, some light will be refracted. Okay, so the reflected light will have a additional phase difference of pi and or path difference of lambda by 2. What it says, suppose here it is the case, there is a mistake here, n1 should be less than n2, n1 is not greater than n2. Here it is a medium, air medium. Suppose this is air having refractive index value of 1, and suppose this is glass having refractive index value, so suppose around 1.5. Okay, suppose around 1.5. So here it is a denser medium, here it is a rarer medium, and the refractive index of glass is greater than the refractive index of air. Now, in this case, if a light beam is incidenting from the air side onto the glass, from the air side onto the glass, some light will be reflected, and in this case, the reflected light will have an additional phase difference of pi or path difference of lambda by 2. Okay, the reflected light, when the light travels from a rarer to denser medium, will have an additional phase difference of pi. So when the light is traveling, a phase change is happening. Okay, when the light is traveling, a phase change is happening. Now, immediately after it incident on this and get reflected, whatever phase change that is happening, whatever change is happening due to the propagation, that is there, that is already there. Some phase change is happening due to the propagation of light, okay, in the free space. Now whatever phase change is happening due to propagation of light, that is there. Now just because of this reflection, an additional phase change of pi will happen or will take place in the reflected light when the light is propagating from a rarer to denser medium. Okay, now there is a mechanical analogy to this. Mechanical analogy to this situation. What is that mechanical analogy? You tie a rope to a rigid support very tightly. Okay, tie a rope to a rigid support very tightly, as shown in this figure, rope or string. Now, when you will shake that string, when you will vibrate that rope, what will happen? One disturbance will start propagating towards the tied end. Okay, one disturbance will start propagating towards the tied end. And once it reach at the tired end, this rigid support, what will happen? The disturbance will get reflected back towards the source, towards the origin. Okay. Now, if the support is very rigid and you have tied very tightly, then what will happen? The reflected vibration or reflected disturbance will have a phase, will have an opposite phase to the incident vibration or incident disturbance. Okay, as you can see in this figure, the reflected disturbance is having an opposite phase to the incident. Opposite phase means pi phase difference. Okay, so this is a mechanical analogy to this optical fact or optical law. When you are transmitting a disturbance through a string tied to a rigid support very tightly, the reflected disturbance will have an opposite phase or will have a pi phase difference of extra phase of pi included in the reflector component. Okay. On the other hand, if the light is getting incident from a denser medium to a rarer medium, if the light is incidenting from a denser medium to a rarer medium, here it is a glass medium which is having a refractive index of 1.5. Here suppose it is a air medium, refractive index 1, and you are incidenting a light from this side. That means the light is propagating in this direction and getting reflected from this interface separating your glass and air medium. Then there will be no additional phase difference between the incident and reflected light. No phase addition will happen or will take place when the light is getting reflected from an interface while going from denser to rarer medium. Okay, so the phase difference, additional phase difference will take place only in this case when the light is traveling from a rarer to denser medium. There is similar to the mechanical analogy I given earlier. There is a mechanical analogy for this case also. So instead of a rigid support, you if suppose you are having a loose support. Okay, you have tied the rope to a support very loosely. Okay, so that it can your disturbance can propagate along the knot also. Okay, the tie knot also. Then what will happen? The reflected wave or reflected disturbance will be in the same phase of the incident disturbance. The reflected disturbance will be having same phase as that of the incident disturbance. If the support is not rigid and you haven't tied the rope to the support very tightly, very rigidly. Okay, if that case is there, then there will be no phase difference between the incident and reflected. Additional phase difference. There will not be any additional phase difference between the incident and reflected disturbances. Okay, this is a mechanical analogy of the second case. Now, using this fact, if there is light, if the light is traveling from air to glass, where the reflection coefficient in this direction, where the reflection coefficient of this interface has a reflection coefficient whose value can be written as r equal to n1 minus n2 divided by n1 plus n1 plus n2 of the whole square when the light is incidenting vertically. Okay, when the light is incidenting vertically in this way, then the reflection coefficient of this interface will be equal to n1 minus n2 divided by n1 plus n2 whole square. And while incidenting in this direction, again this will be n2 minus n1 divided by n2 plus n1 whole square. Now, since there is a whole square over here, there is the magnitude of this is not going to change. The magnitude of this is not going to change. What will happen? Only there will be a phase difference between the incident and reflected light. Okay, this is the formula for reflection coefficient of an interface when the light is incidenting vertically. If it is incidenting with a certain angle, one angle factor is going to come from n1 cos theta minus n2 sin theta, like that. Okay, some critical formula is going to come. So I'm just giving an example. I'm just trying to give a feel of what is reflection coefficient. Now, using this fact, it can be shown quite easily that if the reflection coefficient of this interface while light is traveling from this medium to this medium, from air to glass, if that is r, and the reflection coefficient of light of the interface of of, of reflection coefficient of the interface while light is getting incident from glass to air is r prime, then we can say that r equals to minus r prime. Okay, only thing is that they will have a relation of opposite phase. The magnitude are going to remain same. The reflection coefficient of this interface when you are traveling from glass to air, and the reflection coefficient of this interface when you are traveling from air to glass, they do have similar magnitude, but their uh, is different. Their phase, they will have a different phase, because for rarer to denser medium, from air to glass medium, we will have a phase difference of pi, but from denser to rarer medium, there will be no phase difference. Okay, and if t and t primes are the transmission coefficient of the interface while traveling from this side and traveling from this side, then r square plus t prime equals to 1. These two formulas are called Stokes relation, and they can be proved using your electromagnetic theory boundary conditions. This can be proved. Okay, you need to remember these two formula. Of course, these are not that required, but you just need to remember this fact that when light is traveling from a rarer to denser medium, an additional phase shift of pi is incurred in the deflected light. You just need to remember this formula, this fact, in order to understand the Newton's ring experiment. Okay, I think time is up. So I have uploaded this entire note to your Google Classroom, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So what we have to do in the next class, you just need to come with a little prior preparation of this two slides. What are these slides? Here we are discussing. Here we are discussing if we are going to generate two coherent sources by the process of division of amplitude, okay, by using a thin film, then what will be the phase difference or path difference between the first reflected light and second reflected light? I can we can say this is first reflected light. CR, please take the attendance and send it to me. Okay, whoever is CR, please take the attendance and send it to me. Now, in the next two slides, we are discussing if you are using the method of division of amplitude to get two coherent sources from a single source by using a thin film, then what will be the phase difference between or path difference between the first reflected light and second reflected light? Okay, that's what we are going to discuss. We are going to find it out, because that is useful while discussing the Newton's law. Now, there can be two cases. One case in which the thin film will be parallel. Okay, the thickness of the film is uniform everywhere. Okay, this is a case where thin film is parallel. Another case is there where the thin film is not parallel. It's a wedge shaped thin film. Okay, wedge shaped thin film means one surface is horizontal and another surface is at a certain angle to the first surface. Such kind of mediums, such kind of films are called wedge shaped film. So if it is a parallel thin film, then what will be the phase difference between first reflected and second reflected light? If it is a wedge shaped thin film, then what will be the phase difference between the first reflected light and second reflected light? That's what is being derived and discussed in these two slides. I request you, I insist you to come to the next class with little prior reading of these two slides, because I'll be discussing only one. The next I'll not be discussing. Okay, so here we are just finding out the path difference or the phase difference between the two reflected component of light, first reflected and second reflected component of light. Okay, so it was all about today's class. Next class we'll be discussing this parallel thin film and Newton's ring, and we'll finish Newton's ring in the next class. Any doubt till now?
Sir, please upload the
No, sir.
previous lecture notes.
Sorry,
PPT of last
Sir,
class,
please.
sir.
I have uploaded the complete PPT, I guess. Entire PPT.
No, sir, you have.
No, sir. No, sir.
No?
No, sir, no.
No, sir.
Okay. Okay, I'll upload the entire optics PPT today itself. Okay. Entire interference
Thank you, sir.
PPT. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Okay.
sir.
Have you shared the
Thank you, sir.
attendance?